Welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. Today we're tackling a massive universal challenge that literally keeps executives and managers up at night. I'm talking about how you lead an organization with absolute clarity, and maybe even more importantly, how you scale that organization without it descending into complete chaos. You know, we all want our teams rowing in the same direction, but let's be real, the reality is usually way messier than that. So today, we're breaking down the architecture of alignment to show you exactly how to structure your planning layers for maximum impact.
It's a totally frustrating scenario, right? You spend weeks, maybe even months, locked away in a conference room designing this absolutely perfect strategy. It's brilliant on paper. But then, fast forward 6 months, and nothing is fundamentally changed. You have teams working incredibly hard, you've got a dozen parallel projects running at the exact same time, but they just don't align. They aren't actually moving the needle. So why does this happen? Why do these supposedly great strategies so frequently just completely fall apart at the execution stage?
Okay, let's dive right into this. The root of all this misalignment comes down to one simple, undeniable truth. The actual word strategy is completely overused. We've basically forced this one concept to do way too much heavy lifting within our companies. Think about it. When you label literally everything your team does as strategic, the word loses all its meaning. And when everything is strategy, well, nothing gets executed with any actual precision.
What usually happens is we end up creating this bloated, catch-all strategy document. I'm sure you've seen one of these, or maybe you're dealing with one right now. It blends these massive, high-level goals and sweeping visions with middle management tactics, week-to-week planning, and down-in-the-weeds daily execution tasks. It's all just thrown into one massive file or presentation. The pain point here is profound, guys. When you blend all these distinct elements together into a giant soup, your teams are left completely unclear on what their actual immediate priorities are. And so those daily tasks just completely fail to ladder up to the big goals.
To actually fix this, we have to metaphorically unpack that bloated document. And this brilliantly illustrates how we do it. Think of it as a journey with 3 completely distinct structured layers. We have level 1, the destination at the very top. Then we have level 2, the bridge right in the middle. And finally, we have level 3, the engine at the bottom. By explicitly separating these layers, your leadership team is going to gain immediate clarity on exactly what level they are operating at on any given day, and crucially, why it matters.
So starting at the top, level 1 is strategic planning. This layer focuses entirely on long-term direction. It defines your competitive positioning and, critically, what the company will say no to over a 3 to 5 year time horizon. This is your destination. It establishes the foundational why and where of the organization. What is your competitive edge? Where exactly will you be in half a decade? And honestly, perhaps the most important part of strategy, what will your company intentionally choose to say no to, because true strategy absolutely requires boundaries.
Let's make this super concrete to really anchor the concept. Level 1 is exclusively owned by the CEO and the executive team. Imagine a tech company setting a final, massive directive to expand into 3 new markets, right? It's a broad, long-term goal focused on overall revenue growth or huge market share expansion. They set this final direction at the very top, very often taking critical input from the board of directors to make it happen.
But we have to be super careful here. The absolute most common failure point at level 1 is keeping things too theoretical. Strategy completely fails when executives set vague goals, when they avoid making the hard, sometimes painful trade-offs, or when they dilute the company's focus across way too many top priorities. Look, if everything is a top priority, nothing is. Your strategic destination must be crystal clear and sharply focused.
Let's move down a step and see how this builds. Level 2 is tactical planning. This focuses on medium-term initiatives, bridging vision and execution over a 1 to 3 year time horizon. This is your crucial middle layer, the bridge. Its entire purpose in life is to translate that high-level 30,000-foot strategy we just talked about into focused, actionable initiatives. Operating on a medium-term time horizon, this layer acts as the vital connective tissue. It brings your grand vision down to your on-the-ground execution by aligning cross-functional teams around shared milestones. So who actually builds this bridge? Well, level 2 is owned by department heads and senior managers. It's their specific job to coordinate resources and set these milestones. Continuing our story, if the level 1 destination was to expand into 3 new markets, the mid-level leaders now step up to, say, launch a European sales team. Now we have a specific, highly measurable initiative with a defined 18-month window. They're tracking things like hitting specific hiring goals or achieving campaign ROI. Now, the massive danger in this middle layer is basically building a bridge to nowhere.
The most common mistake at level 2 is a total lack of strategic alignment. This happens when middle management takes on way too many parallel projects, or worse, they focus precious time and resources on little pet initiatives that simply do not support that primary level 1 vision. Tactical success absolutely requires strict, uncompromising alignment with the big goals sitting right above it.
All right, moving to the bottom layer. Level 3 is operational planning. This is hyper-focused on short-term execution, driving daily tasks and habits over a daily to 12-month time horizon. Finally, we reach the foundation. This is the engine. It's where the rubber finally meets the road. We're now talking about short-term execution, driving the actual day-to-day output, the tasks, and the processes that keep the momentum going. The time horizon shrinks drastically here, and this layer is all about turning those strategies and tactics into actual physical motion.
Down here in the engine room, ownership belongs entirely to team leads and frontline managers. They supervise and execute the assigned work using really clear standard operating procedures and checklists. To finish out our tech company story, that European sales team we just launched, well, now they need daily fuel. The concrete Level 3 operational plan is hitting weekly sales quotas, tracking highly measurable daily outputs like call volume and customer response times.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. Without those guiding layers above it, the operational layer is just a trap. The biggest mistake down here is confusing motion with progress. Operations struggle immensely when teams are just handed a giant list of tasks and completely overloaded with busywork, losing complete sight of the strategic context. They end up running incredibly fast on a hamster wheel, exhausting themselves without actually moving the company forward an inch.
Now, what's really fascinating about this is the actual science behind that alignment. It's all mapped out in the outcomes-based performance framework. This shows the exact mechanism that powers our engine and proves whether our alignment is actually working. When you get your layers right, your daily operations naturally trigger this amazing cascading chain reaction of success.
If we walk through this execution flow step by step, it actually gives us a perfect implementation checklist for your business. First, you check your inputs, your resources and constraints. Second, you track your interventions. That's your people executing the processes. Third, you measure your daily outputs. And right here is where alignment is tested. Do those daily outputs actually trigger step 4, short-term outcomes, like better financial performance? Because if they do, they will ultimately achieve step 5, long-term strategic impacts. Boom! That is your level 1 destination officially achieved.
To wrap this entire journey up, I want you to remember this one powerful truth. Strategy sets the destination. Tactics chart the course, and operations drive the car. When you finally stop using strategy as a lazy catch-all word and actually separate these 3 layers, literally everything changes. Strategy stops being theoretical fluff. Tactical plans suddenly gain real teeth. And operations, the hard, grinding work your teams do every single day, finally moves the needle.
So I've got to ask, look closely at your own organization today. Are your teams driving true progress, seamlessly connected from the daily tasks all the way up to that massive 5-year vision? Or are you just confusing motion with progress, stuck in some bloated, misaligned document? Take a really hard look at your own engine today and ask yourself, where is your bridge broken? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.